let's talk, kind of transition from what can we do as an individual to what can we do as an organization as a whole. And so, when I think of the organizational health, I think of a group of people who are all experiencing operational and organizational trauma or stress, and they're dealing with this traumatic material from anywhere from the secretary all the way up to the managing partner, and they're interacting with each other. And so you have to gauge the health of your organization and figure out, how are we doing handling this traumatic profession, and then do something about it, right? And so tell us a little bit about this slide we're about to pull up here about assessing the organizational health of your team.
Yeah, I get the opportunity to do a lot of training and to consult with organizations on compassion fatigue. And one of the things that I found was that if the leadership of an organization doesn't understand it and isn't able to or willing to look at the overall health, that they generally make a lot of assumptions that aren't necessarily accurate. So it's a document that I put together with the intent of helping leaders begin to assess the health of their team. And it's built on values, but it's also built on certain organizing principles that all systems utilize. So roles and so it's a series of questions to help leaders begin to look at, do we have open communication? Do we value that person who brings up a problem, or do we struggle with that?
So what do you do when you go into an organization and you bring this up and you say, so what are your values or your team values? What's the culture you're looking for here? And they go, I don't know. What do you do?
Well, I think it has to start with that then. They have to begin to look at, like, why did you start the firm? What were you, when you left wherever you were, what were the things that were missing that you wanted, that you felt were really important enough to start your own firm? And most people, when they can begin to have a dialogue without the urgency of, I got to come up with a list, but just having a conversation, they just start to emerge. The values emerge.
Well, and I think that's so interesting. What are your agency values, your team values, your culture that you want to create? And then immediately the question is, have they changed in recent weeks or months? And that to me is a telltale sign, if the answer is yes, that they're handling an amount of trauma, compassion fatigue, or whatever you are able to pinpoint that the problem is. They're dealing with an amount that they can't handle at that moment.
Oh, I mean, just think of COVID and how it changed everything that we do. Changed the way we do our we practice technology, etc. And so, sometimes there's a big thing that people can pinpoint and say, well, this is what happened and why it's different. Other times they don't
pinpoint it. And we're just so busy that we can't get our footing. And that could be, a firm that finds great success quicker than they thought they might. That's going to change the culture. People are going to be spread thin, and stress is going to be high amongst the staff. And being able to be informed of that and pinpoint that and say, wow, we have lost the culture that we were. Obviously, for a good reason, and that you found success, but you got to realign it, right?
Well, sometimes
go ahead.
Sometimes values change over the course of time, and people take on more cases than the boutique kind of nature that they wanted it to be. It's a different culture, and it requires a different way of communicating. And so I think sometimes just having leadership begin to kind of have a conversation. I mean, we do this every year. We go through this exact thing every year where we talk about our values. Like, have we maintained them? Have we changed? You know,
And was that change a good thing, or is it an evolution, or is it a reactionary change? And what do you do about that? And so talking about leadership, that I'm looking now, I kind of jumping past rules. We'll come back to that one, but roles. I like this. Is there a clear delineation in terms of who does what, work responsibilities, information sharing, and decision making? And are employees aware of these roles? When we were talking about organizational trauma in the last chat, one of the big ones was when there isn't a clear delineation of responsibility, when people don't know what their job responsibility is, and they feel like I don't know where the line ends, right? Where I begin and where my job begins and where the next person's job begins. I kind of do everything. I kind of pick it up, and I'm a team player, right? That would be this.
It would be that. You had used the example of in our last conversation about an attorney who just had a very difficult deposition or some work activity, and they closed the door to their office so they can sit and reflect for a few minutes, and people need to get a hold of them, and suddenly calls aren't being made, and that idea that and then someone says, well, someone has to call Mrs. Smith, so they make that call, and then there's resentment, and so it's like how something like that can snowball within a team, to where people are picking up the ball that someone else has dropped because they're too burned out, or they're too traumatized, or they just can't make themselves do it.
Well, and that resentment's a good word. How quickly can the quote unquote team player grow resentful, right? If there isn't a reprieve from that. And that's, do you ask team members to work outside of their responsibility? If there's that one person will pick up the slack, and then you ask them to pick the slack up every time, and they grow resentful and they grow burnout, boom, they're in the continuum, right?
I mean, in the counseling world, we look at supervision as being self-care. And so one of my counselors being able to come to me to say, hey, I'm really struggling. And we tend to think of supervision as being, are people doing what they're supposed to do? But there's also a term called restorative supervision. The idea of asking people, how are they doing? What can we do to help you? Making sure that the firm, in my world, it's the administratively, that we're taking care of our staff. I mean, we look at our the rate at which employees leave, and really self-evaluate. How much of that do we have to own?
Right. Exactly. And I guess that's this, right? Is assessing your health of your organization. If you're looking at this list and going, we're not doing well on this assessment, then that's a good indicator that you got to spend some time understanding maybe a little more the compassion fatigue and the trauma informed practice, and understanding, okay, we gotta fix some things. So I like the rules section here at the bottom left, and this is more, it appears, rules for employees, right? And so as organizational stress grows, turmoil within grows, gossip grows, secrets, resentment, fighting. So this is, how do you address that, right?
Yeah, it's two things. One is most firms, most treatment centers have policy and procedure manuals, and those are the rules. And if we don't enforce those, then everyone realizes that the real rules are the ones that we live by. And so there are overt rules, which are the policies and procedures, and then there are covert rules, which are the ones that say these are the rules that can be broken and no one's going to say anything. And so when we start looking about things like communication style and secrets that are kept between people in the firm, how do you deal with rumors? How do you deal with complaints? Because that's where resentments happen. If you're enforcing it with me, but you're not enforcing it with him, we got a problem.
Well, and enforcing that, I'm jumping right over to relationships because I see a tie in there, but enforcing that with everybody across the board. And are there team members who feel like insiders and others who don't feel included, outsiders? That's that, right? That's this inner circle.
Exactly what I'm talking.
You know, that just churns that organizational stress over.
Yeah, I'm never going to get promoted because I'm not one of the
I'm not one of, right, exactly. Or be careful being vulnerable around so-and-so because they talk a lot to management, you know, something like that. I don't know how often that happens, but that would be an example of that. All right. Well, so I want to talk about this last one, the ritual, the importance of that, right? Celebrating individuals.
Rewarding people and recognizing hard work, recognizing teams. There's a lot of belief that if people are doing their job, then that's what they're supposed to do. But the research is very clear of how rewarding people and making them feel empowered and appreciated just works so well to take care of so much of this stuff.
Yeah.
The rituals are a big part of it.
Well, so the other things I was thinking about, as well as the things on that list, and I think that's such an important list that you've put together. But one is, and it's not really mentioned here, we have talked about it, but is acknowledging this, affirming this, right? And that if you can talk openly to say, we work in a stressful profession and we're all going to experience these symptoms and talk about those symptoms. And I'm talking about from a managerial perspective, or maybe just a leadership role, right? Maybe it's an attorney talking to his staff, or the lead paralegal talking to the other paralegals. Like, it's okay to feel like this, right? You're going to have days where you're completely overwhelmed, right? Talk about it and affirm it. I think goes a long way, because then people don't feel like they're on an island and everyone else is cruising and they're not.
That's the reason most people leave, is that they don't feel they can talk to other people, and no one else around me seems to look like they're having the same struggle. So it must be me, and I probably need to go somewhere else. And so remember, the first sign of burnout is not exhaustion, it's disillusionment, beginning to question my own value, my ability. And so that just so ties together. And when I consult, once the leadership team has acknowledged this to me, then I generally have the CEO of the organization write a letter to all employees that outlines, hey, we've just identified this new thing that we think is really important, and we're going to really start helping the organization get healthier.
And then some other things is hosting meetings, right? But not meetings to talk shop, to talk cases, to talk numbers. How was our revenue for the month? Talking about things, that the individual aspires to do or to be. What are the worries? What are the concerns? What are you finding here to be the most frustrating? Doing this on an individual level. And I've had the privilege of working for a firm that did that, that met with us individually. We met with teams. We met with the firm wide. They really cared about feedback, right? And that's just so important because, for obvious reasons, right? I mean, you don't really need to go into why feedback's important, but man, is it to just have every meeting be a case review, or we need to step it up on our billable hours or whatever, firms talk about shop, but to have these meetings like, how are you doing? Can we provide you support? How can we provide support? Where do you need it? And then going one step further, consider supplements for your employees, gym memberships, therapy, coaching, providing these things, these services for employees that feel like they need that extra step. And people think, whoa, that sounds really expensive. But going back to the original point we made, which is how expensive it is to rehire and to have turnover. So if you put that money into keeping your employees happy,
Yep.
you save money. I know it costs money, but you save money. Spend money to save money.
Yeah, it's the old saying, invest in your greatest resource. And manpower is our greatest resource. And, it may seem like not an investment, but it really is an investment.
Yeah.
Our clients, our staff we have a big gym in Steamboat that's very nice, and they use it. It's like going to work. I go in there to work out, and half the people in there are people that I work with, and it's really a wonderful thing. And they use the employee assistance program, which doesn't really cost that much money.
Right.
And they may be going to see a counselor because of a relationship issue.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't get help with that, they're going to bring it to work anyway.
Right.
So,
that's a really good point. They may be going not necessarily, I think of the show Billions. I don't know if you've ever seen it on Showtime, but they have at this brokerage or, at this hedge fund, they have an in-house like coach, therapist, kind of like person that they go and they talk to, and it like supposed to boost their performance of it. And I think if you're dealing with some stuff at home that you're maybe bringing in and it's affecting your productivity, if you can have therapy or coaching of sorts to talk about maybe the personal stuff, it does affect your job performance. So
yeah, I mean, if the environment is not an environment that says it's okay to not be okay,
right,
then eventually people have to leave. But if it's an environment that says, there used to be a book called that was I'm okay, you're okay, and I always thought it should be I'm not okay, you're not okay, but that's okay, because no one's okay all the time.
Yeah.
And so let's quit that.
Let's cut to the chase of this, which is we all need a little help sometimes, right? Especially when we are in a traumatizing profession.
And we made the point last time at the end of the video to say, this is not about fault finding.
No.
This is really about how do we get help the healthiest we can possibly be, whether it's a counseling center, whether it's a law firm. It's people's lives. It's important.
Yeah, it's not saying, hey, legal profession, you're doing this wrong. It's saying, hey, legal profession. It's almost like an infomercial, like, hey, legal profession, what if I told you could be better? All just by using the power of your mind, which is essentially what this is, becoming informed on these very real kind of energy sucking areas of the profession, and how do we combat it and deal with it.
If anyone, I'm happy to share anything I have, assessments, entire PowerPoints, training, video stuff, so that if anyone finds this interesting, I'm very happy to share whatever. Doesn't help me sitting on my computer, so I'm more than happy to share it with whoever.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And I appreciate you letting us use it here tonight, because I think it was a lot of material that needed to kind of be seen, as opposed to just us listing things, because it's it's good stuff. I mean, especially the assessing of your organizational health. So we've kind of covered the stresses and how those can cause compassion fatigue. So is there anything kind of closing? I was about to say closing argument that you want to make. Anything you want to say?
Just for more information, check out the other videos, because this is really kind of a summary,
wind down of sorts.
Yeah, the first one is really about an overview of compassion fatigue, and then really looking at both burnout and then the secondary trauma and the others. So if you find this interesting, go back to those. We're easy to get a hold of. We're very happy to talk with anyone. And the other part is we're really trying to build a network of people who are like-minded,
right,
and would like to be on come on this video with us. And
Yeah,
let's
give us
talk about this stuff.
your side of it. Whatever your experience in the legal profession. And after we end here, we'll put our contact info, how to get a hold of us up there. But I totally agree. I want this to be, every attorney knows this term, and every attorney understands their particular niche in the profession, where the trauma comes from, and where does the stress come from, and what are they doing to combat it. Everyone should know it. And so that's kind of a goal, and I'd love to keep the conversation going. So Dad, it's as usual, as always, it's a pleasure. All right. Well, until next time.
Yeah. See ya.